If you've noticed, it's been a while since I've covered some analog horror, and it's mainly because a lot of the better pieces I've seen as of late are either shorter, standalone episodes, like a lot of the stuff Dr. Nowhere is putting out, or they're series that kind of speak for themselves and are more about the presentation that my analysis really couldn't elaborate on, like Lizardman Inc., for example. And series that I keep up with, like Kane's work, has been put on halt as the Backrooms movie is about to come out. And Alex just got Mandela Catalog Part 6 up, which I'll probably make a video on soon. But recently, the series I have been asked to cover, far more than I think any series I've ever covered before, is Angel Engine.
How to cage an angel.
Angel Engine follows the story of a humanity that was on the brink of collapse after a resource scarcity. So the world prayed and God sent an angel, which humanity captured and began to use as an infinite energy source. Through this folly, humanity set into motion the biblical apocalypse. Of course, all of these subjects sound like they're right up my alley. Otherwise, it'd be a series that I would love to talk about, but there's one problem. Angel Engine was entirely composed of AI imagery. Every visual from the series was fabricated with generated AI.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And if you've seen me talk about it on social media or podcasts, you know that I hate AI a lot. It used to just be image generation that I had a problem with, but at this point, I don't even use Siri anymore. It's getting to the point I'm suspicious of calculators, and every day I get closer to my Ted Kaczynski cabin. But regardless, the concept of Angel Engine was interesting, so I said if the series ever switched to actual artists, I'd give it a look. Well, lo and behold, not only did the series creator Unearthly Hub begin working with an artist for the series, but Angel Engine also got a video game. That's right, along with Unearthly Hub, HMS Studios, and Black Lantern Collective developed an original game. Angel Engine got a lot of hate online, fittingly, for using AI images, so the big tagline for the game that they paste at the top of the credits and on the Steam homepage is that no AI was used in the creation of the game. So, true to my word, this was enough for me to check out the game, and afterwards, the series itself. So after consuming the entirety of the Angel Engine cinematic universe, there are some things in it that I really like and some things that we're going to talk about. This is going to be a bit different than my standard analog horror or ARG analysis, as I'll do some of the story analysis and theorizing that I normally do, but I primarily want to talk about the series itself and how some things work and how some things do not. Now, if you're here to just hear me bash on the series because of the AI stuff, there will be some of that, but I want this to be productive. I've been in contact with Unearthly Hub as well as the series artist, and both of them have been really cool and straightforward with me. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is something here. There's just a lot of bathwater too. And I feel it'd be wrong of me to profit off a video that contains ads and a sponsor without giving the original series an opportunity to be checked out on its own. So I'll have the original series as it was posted to Instagram and TikTok linked in the description, as well as the game on Steam, which I can wholeheartedly recommend. My short review is that it's fun and great if you love these apocalyptic religious aesthetics. So all that will be in the description below if you're interested. I also did a full playthrough of the Angel Engine game where I looked for all of the lore and secrets that you can watch for yourself over on the brand new channel, Wendiglitch. That's right, yet another YouTube channel has hit the building. Since this is the third one, I guess that would be the Pentagon. On Wendiglitch, I plan to do a lot of faceless commentary for horror games I like to play, or a lot of shooters I like to play with friends. In addition to Angel Engine, I've got a video over there as well where I played through the new Ready or Not DLC, which a lot of you guys have been recommending I make a video on, which I might. But for now, you can see me and Operator Drewski play through it for the first time. To address a couple things about the channel, I know a lot of you probably hear that and think, oh great, now he's going to have even more attention pulled away from the 3 other channels that he runs. You know, Wendigoon and Wendigang that I run, and Creepcast, which is an amalgamous tumor that I may never remove. Well, truth is, I play video games a lot anyway, so I just started recording them. And between us, it's hard to justify playing video games a lot when I also have to be a father and, you know, have this whole job. So this may just be an elaborate way for me to justify it. And faceless commentary is the kind of content I can make while I'm taking care of the kid. Plus, you may be asking, why not call it Wendigames? Well, those who have been here for a while will remember that Wendigang's original name was Wendigames, as that started as a gaming and live stream channel before it got converted into videos that are honestly better content than whatever I'm doing over here. At least, from a production standpoint. But since I made that channel Wendigames originally, it got the Wendigames at. So you can't search Wendigames, Wendigaming, or anything with the word game in it without bringing up Wendigang first. So I effectively stole the channel name from myself. So you know what? You're getting Wendiglitch and you're going to be happy with it. Plus the editor for that channel already despises me, so you can all bully me about it together. Jokes aside, the support I've seen so far over there has already been overwhelming. It really means a lot that I can do things that I'm interested in and you all show up for it, and it means the world. Thank you. With that plug out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get into it. But as always, thank you for watching. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Angel Engine. I'm not sure if Unearthly Hub intended to just make a single scary video originally and then it became this whole series, or if his idea was always to make a series. Because the first episode and the one that blew up was simply describing what the Angel Engine is. The first frame of the first video was this scary face. I think this face did a lot of the heavy lifting in bringing the initial watchers on board. The face then describes the series of steps that led to the Angel Engine in the first place, saying that humanity was on the brink of extinction because we had destroyed the planet. So with the world in the midst of war and turmoil, with nowhere else to turn to God. And God sent an angel, which humanity imprisoned and began to use as an infinite energy source. And I would describe this initial video as frustrating. Like I said, the concept is awesome. Like, sure, there's scary faces that show up, and those can always help an online horror series, but I think the reason people have been so invested in Angel Engine is because this concept by itself is so grabbing. I mean, how many stories are there about humanity running out of water or running out of food or energy because of our carelessness with the resources we've been provided? And then how horrible of a concept is it that in our damnation, God gave us an out? He sent an angel to take care of us, to restore all of the needs that we had lost, and we used that up too. Just like every other resource we had on the planet, we caged it, we hooked wires up to it, and we tried to drain it for all it's worth. But because this angel is a thing of God, because it has infinite energy, well then we can keep the party going forever. We don't have to get better, we don't have to change our ways. This can enable us for generations to come. This is such a cool concept, and there's so many stories you could tell within it. But what brings it down so much and frustrates me about this first episode so much is, of course, the visuals. Not just because it's AI, and people may have ethical qualms with that, people like me, but even putting that aside, the animations, if you want to call them that, just seem weird. Like, for example, this scary face, who I'm going to refer to as the messenger throughout the rest of the video. Because there isn't an animator drawing individual poses for how the mouth looks open and how it looks shut, the AI is just filling in the gaps of what it thinks the mouth should look like at each cut. And because of that, the shape of the messenger is just kind of confusing. Like, if you look at it in one frame, it looks like it doesn't have a mouth. There's just skin grown up where the mouth is supposed to be. But then when it opens its mouth, it has very clearly defined lips and teeth. But then the mouth will change and have a much more smooth face with a sharper chin. And then sometimes the mouth will open and it'll be a mannequin's chin before the mouth goes back to closed, and this time it has lips. Now, there's been some counter arguments to this saying this is part of the appeal. The fact that the face keeps changing adds to the uncanniness of it. It makes everything look weird. But it's hard to determine any real uncanniness because we know it wasn't the author's intention. For example, take a series like the Mandela Catalog. In that series, the alternates or the intruders are constantly changing. Their facial features, their shapes can be completely different from one scene to the other, and in some scenes, they change while in the scene. This is because the alternates are trying to mimic humanity. And we know while watching the Mandela Catalog that this mimicry, this imperfect representation of a person, is uncanny because we know if they get better at it, then they may succeed. They may really replace us. And we also know at any moment they could transform into something else. They could decide to let the facade slip away and just become something terrifying. But here, we know that wasn't the artist's intent because the artist just typed in a talking function for this image, and the AI couldn't figure out how to get unity between the jaw movements, so it just looks different every time the jaw moves. Which right now you may not think that's a big deal, but I'm telling you, later in the series, it will get hard to determine who is who and what's happening because the AI isn't sure how everyone's supposed to look. And because of that, a lot of the characters will look a lot like other characters, and it gets confusing. As a matter of fact, in this first episode, we can already see the visuals holding back the narrative. For example, when the messenger is talking about how we destroyed wildlife, we see a row of cloaked figures in hard hats and red eyes walking through a forest fire. You may see this image, like I did on my first watch through, and assume this is some legion from hell, some supernatural entity set to bring about the destruction of the world. But after watching the series, no, these are just supposed to be firefighters or workers, I guess. But because I guess the prompts that were used to create the image were things like scary, dark, and hard hats, the AI just copy pasted the same person over and over, so it gives off the illusion of a uniformed army of devilish people, which lowers the weight of what this first episode is trying to get across to us, that we did this ourselves. Also because instead of true movement, the AI is basically taking a still image and kind of making the pieces within it rebound back and forward. It creates some images that are just kind of odd. Like, for example, when we see the angel attached to the cables, they're floating in a green void, gently bouncing up and down. Again, this leads to confusion when you watch the initial series because this depiction of the angel engine never shows up again. Every time we see it after this, it's in a lab setting, and the angel who's strapped in is much more static. And again, this difference isn't because of artist intent, it's because the AI isn't replicating the same image in the correct way when it's asked to replicate it again. Or take this final shot we get of the angel's face, which looks completely different to the angel we saw in the last two scenes of the angel. Because the only movement it can do is show the angel's face deteriorating to gray, it shows us the loop of the face being removed and then just repeats the loop over and over. So it almost gives off the impression that the angel's face is restored, then destroyed, then restored and destroyed, which doesn't seem to be how the engine works, again from later entries. This will happen a few times when the AI is trying to create movement by just looping a few still images. I'm not going to go into that level of detail for every entry in the series, just know problems like this tend to persist, at least up until an artist comes on board. Short version is it's a cool idea, it just looks bad, and you will be amazed how much better it looks when someone starts drawing these things. There's also some other things that show up through the series that I don't necessarily have a problem with, it's just more so a problem with their implementation. Like, for example, there's a few episodes of Angel Engine that are sponsored. And by sponsored, I mean there's episodes that are the characters within the series talking about the sponsorship. Now, I want to make it very clear that I have no problem with creators making their money. Sponsorships are a great way to make a living without costing your audience anything unless they're interested in the product. For example, I'm sure you, like me, like to eat. What I don't like about eating is having to pick between something I want to eat and something I should eat, especially when the latter is expensive and requires a lot of effort. Thankfully, both of those decisions become one without the hassle, thanks to today's sponsor, Factor. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals straight to your door. Meals that are ready to heat and eat in as little as 2 minutes and are designed to help your wellness journey. And it takes all the stress out of planning, cooking, and the cleanup so you can focus on your goals. Every week, Factor has over 100 options. From their meals to their shakes to their breakfast. And those options include everything from comfort foods like rice or pasta to premium options like salmon or steak. Now, I don't know what Factor's doing to their food, but their salmon and steak, even though you put it in a microwave, taste delicious. And it's all super low lift. Again, you just put it in the microwave for a couple of minutes, and otherwise you just throw away the tray when you're done. Top of that, Factor is made without things like refined seed oils or refined sugars, and made with things that are good for you, like a balance of carbohydrates and healthy fats. So you can have food that's convenient and tastes good without the guilt. At this point, whatever Factor wants to send me, I'm happy to try, because I'm blown away with their options, regardless if I think I'm gonna like them or not. Every time I get a box, I'm surprised with how good this stuff tastes. And importantly, I don't have the guilt associated afterwards about eating food out of a microwave. Truly, we are living in the 21st century. So if you want to get in on Factor, then now's the perfect time. Because if you head to the link in the description at factor75.com or click the link below and use code WendigoonFB50, you'll get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for a year. That's right, half off your first box and free breakfast for a year while your subscription lasts. Again, that's code WendigoonFB50 at Factor75.com to get in on this incredible offer today. Thank you all for watching the ad, and thank you to Factor for sponsoring the channel. Their link will be in the description, and we are now back to the video. And I think it's especially cool when these horror series creators can get sponsorships themselves. Alex for the Mandela Catalog or Martin for the Walton Files have done these cute little animations with their characters talking about merch or plushies. I think all that's great, and most of those creators aren't making the money they deserve off of their regular uploads anyways. So when I got to the episodes of Angel Engine where the characters from the series were doing sponsorships for Block Blast, a mobile phone game, sure, it was confusing at first, but who cares? Well, later on, there's an episode where briefly the character who was doing the ad was saying he was upset about doing the ad in a regular episode, not a sponsored advertisement. So it's like, okay, are the mobile game commercials canon now? Are we supposed to assume that the Block Blast games are a part of the Angel Engine universe? And similarly, the series does this a lot with audio. If you're ever on the horror side of TikTok, then you've probably seen a lot of the scary music audios. They're normally taken from a horror movie or some scary web series, and people will use them for creepy animations, cosplays, whatever. Well, Angel Engine certainly has its roots in the Instagram Reels or TikTok side of horror, so you see a lot of recurring sound bites, things like the Pokemon Lavender Town music, or the opening song from Everywhere at the Time. And that's fine, that's part of the genre. Usually the music is just there to be something creepy while things happen on screen. But then, like, there's one video where the audio that's used is Rudyard Kipling's poem Boots, being read by Taylor Holmes. And this reading got a lot of popularity when it was used in the trailer for 28 Years Later. And again, I have no problem with using the poem itself. It's just another scary soundbite to use for scary videos. I mean, you could argue that the horror of the original poem being about men forced to march off and die in war and losing their minds is kind of lost after the 100th video of a scary face jump scaring you, but you know, whatever. But Angel Engine uses that audio for one of its episodes, but instead of it just being a background, it's all of the characters reciting the poem.
Boom, boom, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war.
And it kind of makes sense because one of the later plot points for the series is that there's a war, but there's like clips of the angel saying it and characters that we haven't met yet where it doesn't really fit. So I don't know, it just kind of comes across as trend hopping without really matching the story. Also, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, you can find the original recording of Taylor Holmes reading Boots. And that's a recording that a lot of people on like TikTok and Instagram will use. But the version Unearthly Hub uses is the version from the 28 Years Later trailer. So it's got a lot of cinematic booms and like echo effects that made sense in the trailer, but don't make sense for the episode.
Boom, boom. Moving up and down again. Men go mad with watching them. There's no discharge in the war.
And I feel like it would have fit so much better if you just used the original poem instead of, again, the one that was made for a trailer that we're not watching, but we're hearing the sound effects for. And this may just be like the meta for posting on Instagram and TikTok, but does every episode have to have a scary background noise? Like sometimes Unearthly Hub will post teasers for upcoming episodes that don't have background noise, and it sounds way better. It's way more fitting and even creepier. But then the full episode will come out and it'll be like the Pokemon Lavender Town music. And it's just kind of stimulation with no sensation. It doesn't really point to anywhere. I honestly think, as far as that goes, Unearthly Hub should be more confident in his storytelling. Let the words and plot points speak for themselves. These are, again, just a few of the things that are recurring throughout the series. By the time the second video came out, I think Unearthly Hub realized that he had a hit on his hands and started to flesh out the story more. Because on one hand, the second episode will open up a whole new narrative branch, But on the other hand, it's not stuff that will get elaborated on for a long time. But it is nice to see it all the way back here in episode 2, pointing to the idea that a lot of this was planned out, at least from a story perspective. From a visual perspective, not so much. Because at the start of the second one, we have a different figure telling us how to get to the Holy Land. Now, here's a problem. If you look at this figure, this is someone we haven't seen before. But if we look at the wires hooked up to them, perhaps this is the angel within the engine, just after being decayed for some time. But there are hints later in the series that this is the messenger, and maybe this figure and the messenger and the angel are all one and the same, or maybe it's two different characters, or all three of them are separate. The problem is we don't know because the AI artwork is so inconsistent that I can't tell if this is a creative choice to show an emaciated angel far off into the future, or if this is trying to be the same angel or the same messenger from the first episode, and the AI just didn't do that. Again, because there's no creative reins on the imagery, then the imagery could mean anything. I talk a lot when analyzing these horror series. It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. We may not have all the pieces yet, but we know that the person who made the puzzle understands that there is a full picture, and all this is made to fit together. But because all of this imagery was imagined by a computer, it's like the person who made the puzzle closed their eyes and just took a pair of scissors to a picture. So is this piece supposed to fit with this piece? Does that piece look like this piece? I don't know. Your guess is good as everyone else's. Also, when we see this blonde-haired boy walking, it does the same AI thing where it just loops back and forward. And it seems this thing that's wired up, which I'm going to refer to as the angel because I'm pretty sure it's the angel. It seems the angel is telling someone this, assumedly the blonde-haired boy, so that they can come release him. So this all tracks so far. The angel was contained in the engine, and now it's trying to get someone to let it out. Would you believe me if I told you that this is set 2,000 years in the future? All the stuff to do with the angel in this decomposed state and the blonde-haired boy is 2,000 years after the events of the main part of the story, or the present part of the story. You don't even know what the present part of the story is yet. You know there's an angel engine, and got more than that. Again, it's kind of cool because the fact that this future plotline was being thought of all the way back then shows that there was a direction. You can see why this, in combination with the inconsistent imagery, doesn't help speculation. The next episode shows us the messenger and the angel in the future, who again may be the same person. Maybe. And they're both giving us the same message, warning us that he is coming. We also get this shot of world leaders shaking hands, and they're both like lizard people, which haha, yes, government ran by lizard people and all that, but also that never shows up again. So again, was this artist's intention? Did the AI just come up with that? Who knows? Both the messenger and the future angel then tell whoever they're speaking to find them, which again may mean that the messenger and the future angel are one and the same. In our fourth part, we get the first pieces of the story that will make up the bulk of the narrative. As we see the angel strapped to the engine, which this does look more like the angel we saw in the first episode, but the angel's just going to kind of look a little bit different each time, again, from the AI. The doctor leading this program is someone named Jeff Ernstman. He acts as a vehicle for a lot of events within the story, as he seems to be the one who created the Angel engine, and he's the one at the front of the project. I like this idea. I think these horror series do best when they pick an individual and base their huge reality-breaking principles around one person or one narrative. Makes everything feel more tangible, and you can do more with it creatively. But also, as Jeff is standing there describing how the angel has unlimited power, this scary face starts to show up from behind the wall. And because it has red eyes, I think it might be a character named Barakiel we meet later in the series. Or it could be representative of a spirit or a demon or whatever. But we see this face a couple times and then it disappears. And again, because of the inconsistency with the visuals, I don't know if it's supposed to show up and then disappear, or if it's always supposed to be something that has existed throughout the rest of the series. It just looks different sometimes than it does others. I know there was planning for this series with things like the Holy Land mentioned in part 2, but again, the visuals are dampening the plot to such a degree that I can't keep focus. We then get an address from the president telling the country that the nation is at the brink of war. As he's speaking, his head hollows out and eyes appear within it, saying things like humanity is doomed, our time on Earth is near its end. So this is implying the president's either possessed or under the influence of something. But as he's sitting there talking, the same creature we saw in the lab next to the angel rises up from behind the chair. Only this time it doesn't really have red eyes, it has kind of pink eyes. Or it has a pink eye in one eye, the other one's empty. So I think this is the same creature, even though, again, it looks different from it that we just saw. But whatever this thing is, it seems to be controlling the president. The next part gives us the messenger again, and the problem I talked about with the jaw is on full display. It keeps getting like a scarred up mouth, and then a bunch of teeth appear across its mouth. If this was added on purpose, then it seems to be a creepy effect, the teeth appearing in the mouth, without a real purpose for what it means or why the messenger does that. The messenger says that it's appeared through the gulf of time to tell us that someone's coming who we cannot restrain. We also see a news reporter talking in front of the place where the angel engine's being held, which is a structure called the Second Tower of Babel, which for a group of people who have caged an angel is kind of a bad idea. See, in the Bible, the Tower of Babel was a tower constructed by men trying to rise to heaven to be as God. As punishment, God confounded their languages, and this is where we have the first separation of languages. So the Second Tower of Babel is our second attempt to be as God. As the news reporter is talking, the same face that showed up behind the president appears again. This time it does have red eyes and wings. I suppose it shows up here just to remind us that it is there and that it is there. There's an ad where Ernstman is trying to encourage people to be a part of the Angel Engine Initiative, which angelinitiative.org used to be a website you could visit, but it's down now. We see from this limbless aftermath of one of the test subjects, which again, the weird tube on his arms doing the looping image thing, but people who are part of these trials don't fare well. There's another video of the future angel talking about how to survive in the Holy Land. The future angel tells the blonde boy to look out when he's in the Holy Land because he will come for you. And then we see this angel with wings out of its head and a split face. This is Barakiel, a character we meet later. So I'm pretty sure the blonde-haired person we saw with the red and pink eyes is also Barakiel, because the stuff we saw them do is similar to stuff Barakiel will do later. So I can only assume that the design wasn't figured out yet, or the AI couldn't get the design right. Again, who knows? So it just looks different sometimes. The future angel also refers to Barakiel as the deceiver, which I'm pretty sure with some other stuff we see later, Barakiel is implied to be the Antichrist, so that makes sense. But also I think Ernstman's referred to as the deceiver as well later, so he might be the Antichrist too. There's another video with Ernstman talking in front of the angel that's funny, because at one point the angel asks him to free him, and Ernstman says,
Save me?
No.
like, why would he answer it? Why would he say that? Ernstman says the angel's name is Uriel, which is an angel mentioned in like Catholic canon and in a lot of Christian text and imagery. Ernstman shows that the angel can be used to bring the dead back to life. However, as this happens, it hurts the angel as the angel screams in pain during the resurrection. And it's this in combination with what Uriel says at the beginning of the video that interests me. Because the first thing Uriel says when he sees us is, I love you. Remember when I talked about I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater? This is the baby. The idea that an angel comes to earth and we take it and we seize its resources for ourselves. But in spite of that, the angel imbued with the love of God still loves us and still wants to help us. Well, that's heartbreaking, and it stands in such contrast to humanity's selfishness. As the angel is saying it loves us, and it isn't leaving, even though it has the power to, because it wants to help us, even if it hurts itself, we're figuring out that we can resurrect ourselves. We can live forever if we want to, and we never have to worry about resources again. There's a good idea in here that is being held back by everything around it. Humanity's hubris contrasted with a divine charity that we don't know how to do anything with other than exploit. This alone, even if you don't believe in God, is a great metaphor for the earth or for resources or spirituality. Something that only wants to give and us who only want to take. It's things like this that make me want Angel Engine to be something special and something unique so bad. And we're getting there. We just gotta get there. After this, we see another glimpse of the angel Uriel. Again, because of the AI, this looks different than every other appearance, and he also has sharp teeth now for some reason. We hear Ernstman on a talk show saying that the angel can leave anytime it wishes, which again is a cool idea that the angel may be staying because it wants to help us despite our wrong. Ernstman says he's going to unveil a new invention, which kicks off a lot of the plot events for the rest of the story. In the next part, we see a figure made up of faces with Ernstman's face in the center of it. Conceptually, I like this idea as depicting some mass of souls or entity composed of souls. And Ernstman's face being swallowed up by it is a cool idea, but again, since the visual is just an approximation of that idea, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's also in this part 10, that another thing comes up that I kind of have a problem with that isn't really just a problem with Angel Engine, but more so a problem with these TikTok horror series. So in this part, we see that before Ernstman can unveil his new invention, that he is murdered by a passerby on the street. As he's murdered, we see that his soul is taken by the being made up of many faces. Again, I like this idea a lot. Ernstman has decided to put his pride in front of the interest of heaven. So when he dies and his soul is now subjected to the afterlife, well, you can imagine what his punishment might be. We don't yet know if this being of faces is an agent of heaven or the Antichrist or some hellish afterlife, but we know for people who live a life like Ernstman did, it can't be something good. Again, it's a great idea that's dragged down because this figure made up of many faces isn't anything like the one we saw a few seconds ago. But the problem I'm speaking of is the audio that's used during the scene where Ernstman is shot. When the shooter approaches Ernstman, they say, "God is coming." And there's a choir of voices behind it that sound almost like children, implying whoever the shooter is, they're doing this on the behalf of or under the control of some greater power. The problem is that this audio, the "God is coming" chant, is from the video game Squirrel Stapler. Squirrel Stapler is a game made by David Zumansky, who most of you probably know from his most famous game, Iron Lung. Squirrel Stapler made the rounds on YouTube a while back for being a kind of funny premise with a pretty haunting payoff. As initially, when you play the game, the entire point is to hunt squirrels and then staple them to your dead wife. From the repetition of this action, as well as notes you can find around the map, this initial dark humor setting seems to have a heavier undertone, as it seems our character has committed some great evil and will pay penance for it. The final day of the game has our character unable to return home as voices begin to chant around him that God is coming, till eventually this God appears before the player and the game ends. It's a short, interesting premise that leaves the player thinking, why is this thing referred to as God? Did my character deserve this? Was this all inevitable from the start? Well, Angel Engine takes that audio from Squirrel Stapler and just uses it. Not in the way it's used previous audios, like Lavender Town mentioned earlier. No, it uses it as a thing that the characters are addressing and doing in the series, using the audio of the game for what the shooter says before Ernstman is killed. And kind of similar to the ad that I mentioned earlier, I understand that part of this like TikTok, Instagram Reels horror is using common sounds that people associate with being scary. But again, same as the ads, I can't help but feel different about it when it's now a plot point, because then it's just using someone else's creation for your own. Now, it's not like Unearthly Hub claims anywhere that the God is Coming audio is original or their own creation, but it also feels weird that there isn't a quote or accreditation given. It'd be kind of like if in the midst of this video, I just said a whole paragraph from another YouTube video about Angel Engine I watched, but I didn't clarify that that paragraph was someone else's words. Putting that in the midst of stuff I am claiming to be my own is just kind of weird. Now you may hear all of that and say, well, what's the difference between that and all of the AI visuals from the series, which notoriously use other people's art to create their own image? And to that I would say, you're absolutely right. It is kind of like all of the visuals from the series so far that in one way or another take from another piece of art that has existed to pass and change to be their own. Just when it comes to the audio, there's not really a mask for it to hide behind. While I'm griping about some of the audio choices, there's another track that gets used a lot that I want to bring attention to. So one of the songs that you'll hear used a lot in the series that gets used a lot across TikTok horror as a whole is the opening track from the Caretakers' Everywhere at the End of Time album called It's Just a Burning Memory. So Everywhere at the End of Time is a 6-hour art piece that, in short, is supposed to simulate the experience of dementia portrayed through music. Or at least that's the interpretation most people have. It can also be applied to the idea of fading memories as a whole, or of forgetting people or places. And It's Just a Burning Memory sounds like it could be at home with old vinyl records from the 20s or 30s. But as the art piece goes on, it becomes more distorted and scratchy and missing, and eventually the noise becomes chaotic, the music completely drowned out, before the music, for the most part, goes silent, until at the end, there's a final clarity. It's a beautiful piece of art, and one of the first videos I ever posted to the channel was my reaction to listening through the entire 6-hour piece. It's a heavy topic, but a moving one, and it's for that reason I feel really weird anytime I see a scary face edit or like a video of the ghost in the closet and it's set to this song. Again, this problem isn't specific to Angel Engine. It's just more so by repetition of these scary things and people saying that things are scary because of ideas they invoke or ways they make us feel. It's ultimately repeated by people who just heard the word scary but rip it from the context that makes it meaningful, which puts us in this weird position where a lot of people think that if music sounds old, it is therefore scary. It reminds me of this tweet I saw one time, which this might have been a troll, but the idea still stands. A girl had tweeted that she had gotten in an Uber and the Uber driver had played a song that was like the scariest, most menacing thing she had ever heard. And then she found the song and it was Uptown Girl by Billy Joel. I would argue one of the least scary songs ever. But I think that kind of sentiment comes from people who only interact with whatever the popular culture of the moment is. And often one of the only places in modern culture that uses music from older culture directly is horror. It's often used there to prey on moments of nostalgia or to juxtapose something terrifying with something lovely. You often see this a lot in horror movies with old Christian songs or hymns. Songs like Leaning on the Everlasting Arms or Amazing Grace are comforting and point towards divinity. So when you pair this music with something evil and ungodly, like in the Mandela Catalog, for example, it's effective because you're watching what would otherwise be a safe haven be destroyed and mocked. It points to a lack of sanctity or safehood in whatever you're witnessing. But because people associate fear with those moments, there are those who just think the hymn itself is now scary, even though the only reason it works in those settings is because it's the opposite of such. All of that's kind of a side tangent from Angel Engine specifically. Sure, it does that sometimes by using things like Everywhere at the End of Time, but it's certainly not the only perpetrator. A lot of us are just repeating things that are effective without really understanding why they were effective to begin with. So anyway, Ernstman is killed, and to further point to why AI is useless, there is an AI in loving memory of Jeff Ernstman, and the AI has a typo for his date of death. Instead of 2033, it says it was 3033. This led to a bunch of people speculating how what we believe to be the 2033 timeline was actually another 1,000 years into the future, before the creator clarified that this was just an error and it's supposed to say 2033, which I feel like before you post is the kind of thing you should double check. Or if this text was typed by hand, you should still double check. Anyway, after this, we see that the second Tower of Babel has Ernstman's body hooked up, trying to revive him with the engine. There's another idea here that I like. So Stephen Eckelboom was the second in command at Babel and is now taking over for Ernstman. In his address to the camera, Eckelboom talks about Easter and how Jesus Christ died for our sins and gave us forgiveness of our sins and life everlasting. At first, I thought this point was kind of dumb. Why would a group of people who are holding an angel captive and effectively torturing it even mention the name Jesus? I feel like if you were trying to sell the public on angel torture, the last thing you would want them to be is Christian. But then it makes sense because, like everything else, it's a perversion of that idea. Eckelboom is saying that Jesus gave us life everlasting and forgiveness of our sins because that's what they're trying to do here on Earth. There's no more death. The angel can revive anyone. We don't need to worry about our sins because now we can do whatever we want forever. Instead of earning heaven, they're trying to drag heaven down to here. There's also random edits through the series, kind of like the Boots one I mentioned earlier, where it's just kind of the characters doing something for fun, which is fine. Like there's one where it's the main characters from the series mouthing the lyrics to Where's Your Head At by Basement Jacks. And then there's this shot of Ernstman in front of Uriel that is taken from a Chainsaw Man comic. But at the end of it, there's this glimpse of a mechanical angel named Barakiel, who we'll see later. And as with anything else, the AI art betrays the work. The idea for Barakiel is interesting in some aspects, like these large eyes that appear on the wings and the shorter wings coming out of the head. But again, you'll never see Barakiel looking exactly like this in any future iteration because the machine can't make it look exactly like this every time. The eyes on the wings don't show up again. Sometimes Barakiel's face is split, other times it's together. And again, I don't know if this is on purpose or that's just what the AI spits out. I mean, the next part opens showing Ernstman's face on top of a pile of eyes, and then his face opens up and Barakiel comes out of it. I assume this pile of eyes is similar to the pile of faces that Ernstman's face was inside of earlier. Again, without true art direction, I can't be sure. Anyway, we see that Ernstman has risen from the dead and is here to unveil his new invention. His invention being Barakiel, who we've seen hinted at a few times up until now, an artificial angel. Ernstman has found a way to take the real angel's power and put it into a machine. Since a piece of infinite energy is still infinite, he has effectively created an artificial angel. Now we have the power of God without needing God. And it's here that the series really becomes the most frustrating to me. And I want to clarify the thing I'm about to talk about, I did not realize originally. I got the idea from Antthony Gallego. Antthony makes fantastic videos about all kinds of online horror content. Analog horror to digital horror to series like this on Instagram and TikTok. His vids are funny and there's always great analysis, so you should definitely check him out. I'll have him linked in the description. But he raised this point, and when he mentioned it, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So think about what the series has been about up until now. Humanity has taken advantage of what we've had, so we decided to call out to heaven. Heaven sends us a gift and we abuse it. So much so that we invent a machine that mimics the power of the original divinity by stealing it, allowing us to revel in excess without worrying for the process that made energy come to exist in the first place. Is this not a perfect allegory for AI? We as humanity have the gift of art. We can express ourselves and take these complex, high-order ideas and convert them into visuals, audio, images. But as time has gone on, we have taken that ability for granted and instead converted it into just noise. We don't care for the quality or the purpose of the things we see as long as there is something to stimulate us at all times. So now when we've reached a point of excess where we want to consume more than could ever reasonably be made, we do not curb our behavior, look to new forms of art or new stories that previously we would find challenging or simply not our taste. No, instead, we build a machine. A machine that does not care for the process or the origin, simply the output. We never have to curb our gluttony if we can satiate it forever. We can give the machine an idea of the thing that we want, and it will browse through artworks that took millennia of practice and styles and creativity to spit out an image in a second that means nothing to it and nothing to us, but satisfies us for the moment before we type in something else. So now we have a machine that is the image of the gift we were given, but wrapped in our own folly. See, I hate AI for a lot of reasons, but the reason I hate it most is the idea of it. Stories mean so much to me. As Jacob Geller said in his video about the video game or interactive movie immortality, stories are a kinder, collective immortality. They're pieces of ourselves that outlive any lifespan. They go on to build ideas and people and cultures that all wrap together to create a picture of who we were and what we mean. Every story you've ever heard is a collection of ideas and purpose and themes and imagery that someone took from something else they loved and passed it on to you. And there is such a richness to what parts stick around and what parts don't. How some people convey some things that mean so much to them, while others completely pass those by to give things that mean a lot to that person. It's an unspoken language at the heart of every story we speak. And that applies to all of the arts: music, illustration, cinema. Every book, movie, song, or picture you see is the catalyst of thousands of years of humanity concentrated into one thing. And the expertise and heritage of that is astounding. I, for one, can't draw at all. If it's more complicated than a stick figure, I'm going to struggle. So when I see people make images that have so much attention to detail on the shapes and the line work and the shading, I know there were hundreds of hours of practice that went into that one thing, so when I see it, it means something to me. Even things like this stupid little drawing Meat Canyon made when he came over, which I will erase at some point. That's the product of years of work, of learning how to get the teeth right, how to get the body to stand in such a way that looks comedic, how the proportions should be off in some ways, like the size of the head compared to the torso, but right in others, like the length of the arm and the fingers on the hand. When it comes to art, there's so much unsaid in everything that we say. And what I hate so much about AI is it takes all of that and simply makes it a thing to put in front of our brain. Hey, you like landscapes? Well, here's 1,000 landscapes that the machine has never saw, but is an approximation of what some other people have seen. Hey, do you like superhero stories about underdogs and people with extraordinary powers rising up against injustice? Well, here's videos of them fighting each other, approximated off of battles from movies where they actually fight things, with no other purpose than moving pixels on screen in a way that you like. Do you like scary imagery that harken back to stories that keep us up at night, or speak to different eras of things that disturb us? Well, we threw a bunch of it into a pot and set it on fire, and these are the charred remains of what came out. I hate generative AI because it takes all of what we've put together, all that we've done with art, and simply tells us that it's just a thing to pass by our brain, a hit of something to make us feel an emotion for a second and then pass by like cigarette smoke. And that's everything that I hate about the concept of AI, much less the execution of it. Like how generative AI can only exist by using art that other people have made. So if it exists on the internet, as an artist, like it or not, your work is being thrown into the collective that this thing works off of. Heck, sometimes you can look at these AI horror projects and see where its influence came from directly. Things like Kane's Backroom Entity or Dr. Nowhere's The Boiled One show up all the time in these things. Or, speaking of things done without consent, how about the fact that every ad I get for AI on TikTok is how to use a picture of someone to place them in a pornographic setting. You can take a video of someone doing an erotic dance or straight up porn and then take a picture of anyone you know, and the machine will make that person perform the act. I've even seen this done to myself. Or how about in Appalachia, right when we're done recovering from Hurricane Helene, we now have to worry about our water going away because of AI data centers. You'll see people defend this and say, well, yeah, that's like the population of a town of 50,000 people. Well, a lot of the towns around Appalachia are less than 50,000. So when they're trying to recover and are having trouble getting by as is, and then a whole nother town shows up to take away their supply, well, now there's less food, there's less farms, there's less crops. And there are a countless number of dystopian scenarios that are happening because of this stuff. Oh, Val Kilmer's dead? Well, we'll just do the movie we were going to do with him anyway, but we'll just use AI to make him appear in it. I don't want him to be dead, so I'm going to resurrect his visage forever, to stand in front of my eyeballs in a way that makes me happy. Not to mention people that are using AI to speak to dead loved ones, or people who have social issues who are using ChatGPT to become their best friend or partner. It's detrimental to humanity in a way that I don't think we can fathom the ramifications of. And sure, there is artificial intelligence that is a good thing. In a recent video on Wendigang, I talked about how new AI models are being used to analyze problems with the brains of coma patients, looking for differences in an instant that it would take doctors months or years to find, if they could. There is good that can come of it, but all I see are people enacting weird cheating fantasies with cat or fruit videos. And it doesn't help that every website from YouTube to Twitter is integrating it to try to come up with new brainstorming ideas or give you a personal assistant who you can use to bounce ideas off of or get inspiration for videos. All things that probably by themselves would be fine if beneficial, but I don't want to touch it because I know this is just step one to the eventual dumbing down of everything. Our gluttony has reached a point that has surpassed our merits. We want more, and we don't care where it comes from. Exactly like the world of Angel Engine. I mean, come on, Ernstman invents an artificial angel that takes the power of heaven that was given to us piece by piece, and once we get it all at once, we take it and use it to spit out whatever we want, so we never have to learn anything. Angel Engine is such a good representation of AI, but it also can't be because it's AI. It's like if the devil wrote Paradise Lost. Like, oh yeah, that's cool, Satan. You wrote a story about an angel who was overcome with pride and fell from heaven and tempted man and will forever be lost in their own ego. Does that remind you of anyone? It's so frustrating because in some ways, it's like Angel Engine invented itself. I've spoken to Unearthly Hub and they've said that the images are the only thing from the series that are AI. All of the scripting, the writing, the editing is done by them. And I have no reason to believe they'd lie. I do believe them, but I just think it's funny that by using real writing and real scripting for concepts of ego and arrogance and the want of more, you write a story about the thing you're using. Ironically, one of the most interesting ways to view Angel Engine is as a commentary on its own medium. Regardless, or more interestingly so, even if that wasn't its original intent. In the following part, we see that Ernstman was influenced by this being of many faces back when he built the engine. It's also implied that Ernstman is being possessed by whatever this creature of many faces is, or something else that took hold of his body in the afterlife. We see some other scenes from the future timeline where it looks like this messenger who's hooked up to wires is calling the young blonde-haired boy to free them or kill them to release them. We see that the Barakiel idea has been replicated as the second Tower of Babel has created an army known as the Angel Corps. These are again mobile units embedded with the power of the angel. However, it seems that these Angel Corps members are piloted by a resurrected person. Much like the angel, the person inside is suffering. Again, these are cool concepts and stories that I want to hear. It's just hard to when the figure I'm looking at is most likely a fusion of like Samus from Metroid and Evangelion. We see someone bomb a meeting of world leaders where the Angel Corps are deployed. Again, the Angel Engine is causing unrest in the world. There's another character introduced named Jamie Dubois, who is a leader of a group called the Yellow Coats. And they wear yellow coats in honor of the shooter who killed Ernstman before his resurrection. They believe that instead of an angel, the Tower of Babel is housing the Antichrist, which they very well might be if that's what possessed Ernstman after his death. Also, Ernstman has gone missing, which I imagine ties into his possession. We also hear Uriel as he's hooked up to the Angel Engine, quoting Matthew 5:13, where Jesus said, "If the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted?" In other words, if a person or people have lost their purpose, how shall they find it again? This, of course, equates to humanity throughout the series. There's been a few times like this where Bible verses have been quoted and it's tied into the themes or representative of stuff happening in the series. These are all things I would love, and I wish I could get into it more if I could get past the visuals, which I cannot. In part 18, we hear that to find Ernstman, the second Tower of Babel is sending out the Angel Corps all over the world to search for him. Uriel warns the listener of this and tells them not to take the mark. This, of course, is in reference to the mark of the beast from Revelation. So pretty safe to say Tower of Babel, the thing possessing Ernstman and all that, is pretty adjacent, if not the Antichrist itself. And the things that oppose them, like the Yellow Coats, are likely a good thing. And at the end of this message, Uriel says, "I love you." Again, this is one of the coolest concepts in the series to me, that despite our torturing of it, this being from God can't help but love us because God's love is imbued in it. We're only allowed to exist and use the angel engine because of a love that we do not return. There are so many horror projects that play with ideas of Christianity and divinity that either alter the divinity or make it into a facade by demons or the devil. But again, the concept of this series is so interesting because it's us getting exactly what we want and the agents of God being full of the love we expect them to be with, but with that unlimited power, we invent the terror ourselves. There's a great concept at the base of all this, and I really think we see it in part 19. And that's because on part 19, Unearthly Hub got an artist. He hired Gacy Elbow on Instagram to begin doing artwork for the series. And when I tell you, there is a difference. I'll demonstrate it with this. We've seen a few images of Barakiel up until this point. The artificial angel with the red eyes and the wings out of its head. And it's looked a little different each time we've seen them, but just look at this. This was Barakiel before, and this is Barakiel now. This is the first time in the series we have seen a design executed with purpose. Barakiel has details like long hair and a chiseled face that at one point were probably meant to be attractive or indicative of Uriel. But it's cold, it's gray, the teeth are sharp. It's an angel made of steel and wires, and now assuredly possessed by something. It looks so much better than the other depictions of it before, and it's the first depiction that's consistent. The mouth opens and closes in the way that it's supposed to. Remember one of the early episodes how we saw the president talking about how the country is about to go to war? Well, that image is depicted again here, but with real art, and look at the difference. I mean, look at that. The uncanniness, the brokenness of the artificial wings, the fire raging in the background. The scene depicts what the story is saying. I feel like I'm crazy for saying this, but in the previous one, it was just the president sitting at a desk talking about how the country's about to be destroyed. But here, we see the fire in the background. We see the country is near its end, and we see the angel's wings that mimic the crest of the eagle on the front of the desk. It's amazing how well your visuals can fit a story when you make the visuals like you made the story. And also, look at the movement of the wings. The number of brain-dead comments I've seen that have talked about how they like AI because it looks uncanny. Which, no, it looks jilted, and like the music thing from before, you just think that means uncanny because you've seen those two things in relation to each other. This is actual uncanny movement. They swing in the way that wings aren't supposed to swing, but it's like how a mechanical swing would be. Because this isn't an angel, it's a shape of an angel that something else has come to live in. In the first 5 seconds, it is leagues above anything else in the series. And then Ernstman talking to Eckelbloom as one of my favorite moments in the whole series.
Do you think he was happy?
What do you mean?
Up on that cross.
For one, the scene's actually stylized. It gets across the harsh shadows and tones that the story is trying to get. But also, I've spoken up until this point how it seems that Ernstman is possessed by something, but it's been hard to tell because the only time we've seen Ernstman possessed is in these brief glimpses we get of what's happening inside of his head or inside of his body. And it's always depicted by these blue eyes that have to look so different from the rest of the scenes because that's how the AI engine spit out the prompt. But here, when you're actually making the art, you can do that with some subtlety. Here we see Ernstman sitting in the chair and he has these harsh blue eyes, but it doesn't break the tone. It's telling us that yes, there's something speaking inside of Ernstman if Ernstman's even still in there, but it does it in a way that keeps the harshness of the situation, instead of this weird blue bug-eyed thing we've got up until now. All of this is being shown as the doomsday clock counts down. And then Ernstman, elaborating on his comment, "Do you think he was happy up on the cross?" says this.
In that moment, he accomplished everything he set out to do. What greater joy could there be?
Oh my gosh. It's so, I knew this was in there. I knew from the concept and the stuff happening that there was moments like this, and there was story, and there was delivery and execution, and here it is. Do you think he was happy up on that cross? In that moment, he accomplished everything he set out to do. Is this Ernstman talking, or the Antichrist, or the devil? It doesn't matter because it fits all three. He's saying that Jesus, in that moment of suffering, had to be happy because all he set out to do was to save humanity. And with his death on the cross, he did that. So now, in our perversion of that story, Ernstman feels he's in the same seat. The world is about to be destroyed by nuclear fire, but he got what he wanted. He harnessed the power of an angel and proved he could do it without God. And if it's the devil or the Antichrist in there, well, it's all the more menacing. The world is about to burn, but all he's ever wanted is to spit in God's face. So hellfire or nuclear fire is his reward. It's the devil musing over the victory Jesus took upon him 2,000 years ago and saying that now it's his turn to be the martyr. It's his turn to die for what he wants. This is such a cool concept, and for the first time, I can finally say it's a cool delivery. This is what I want the series to be. All of the AI garbage that the visuals have been dragging down are finally broken free, and I can, for the first time, recommend Angel Engine and say that I'm enjoying it. Without compromise, this is cool. Without compromise, this is good. This is interesting. This is what I want to see. Even in the smaller sense, as we see glimpses of Barakiel. Remember how earlier I said sometimes Barakiel has a split face and other times the face is together? Well, here, because it's actually illustrated, we can see that Barakiel's face is cracking. This is a good motif in character design because there's something in Barakiel that is breaking through, figuratively, the metal body, and we can see it's literally happening now that we, for the first time, have a dedicated visual. It's crazy how much you realize AI is a hindrance to the creators that use them, that can, tell a story, when you see what happens when those creators have the visuals that they were always needing. And then, right before the world is bathed in fire, Uriel says,
I will always love you.
Excellent cinema. Uriel watched us use his power to burn ourselves down, but in spite of it, he still loves us. This is awesome. I'm hyped. I love this Angel Engine. Between that and the Ernstman quote, it's thought-provoking, it's heartbreaking, it's compelling. For the first time, I get to see it the way it was intended. So now that we know the world was destroyed in a nuclear war, that gives us some context as to why the future timeline looks like that. A barren wasteland with a young hero venturing across a desert. It's a world thousands of years after total destruction. So now that momentum's rolling, let's roll into part 20, where for the first time, we see the messenger as it was intended. And look at this.
Won't you join us in paradise?
It is so much creepier. It is so much more well detailed. Even things like the inconsistent mouth movement from before are incorporated because we see the rows and rows of teeth appearing from inside of the jaw. That, in combination with the whispering, tells us that this messenger may be many things. It may be something possessed by something else, possessed by something greater. Now that we can see it as it was intended, we can make inferences like that, and they're all interesting. We also, again, because we get specific visuals, get this cool clue. As we see Ernstman's head with the blue eye burn up in fire, it transitions into the messenger's face with the same eye, telling us that perhaps the messenger is Ernstman, maybe in the far future, or at least they're both possessed by the same thing. Maybe the messenger is what was possessing Ernstman this whole time, which makes this dialogue interesting.
Are you not at fault? You have little faith. Who then should come to save you? Poor banished child of Eve. Was it not you who tried to act as God?
Was it not you whose hubris and decadence plunged this world into despair? Yet now you attempt to run back into his arms?
For one, Uriel looks better than he ever has. We saw a lot of conflicting visuals with the AI before, where Uriel's at one point beautiful, but then robotic, and then this shrunken face. But here we see what the angel's done to him. He is still beautiful. He still has those qualities of divinity, but he's decaying because of the power we're leeching from him. Dialogue is interesting because Ernstman is speaking to the thing that's either in Ernstman or himself in the future. He refers to it as the banished child of Eve. Now, in a literal sense, this could be an extra biblical figure like Lilith, or this could just be speaking of a banished humanity, or perhaps the devil. But as Ernstman accuses this figure of trying to play God, Uriel corrects Ernstman and says he could say the same of himself. Ernstman tried to play God and now seeks the grace that he separated himself from. Eckelbloom, his body maimed after the explosion, refers to Ernstman as the deceiver. Again, something that could be equated to the Antichrist or the devil. Before the skin peels away and we see the figure of many eyes from before. Now that we know, again, it is crazy when you actually design the visuals, the stuff you can tell with just an image. Now that we know this is a creature of many eyes, blue eyes to be specific, if this is the Antichrist, then this is likely the thing that had possession of Ernstman. Way earlier in the series, the messenger and Uriel warned us of the deceiver. Now Uriel says that he is here as we see this. And to confirm this, as we pull into this deceiver's face, we see Ernstman without eyes and without teeth, showing that he is hollowed out and now possessed by whatever this thing is. We get a glimpse of Ernstman before the Angel Engine, washed up at a bar saying that his career's come to an end. Or we see the messenger repeat his lines from the first episode in the series, telling us how to cage an angel. This confirms that that first episode was intended for Ernstman. The messenger from the future told Ernstman how to cage an angel to build the angel engine. Ernstman felt himself to be a failure and was willing to do anything to get back on top. So the messenger called out to him and enacted the plan of the Antichrist. This is a great parallel because just like the devil, his ego is what led him to trying to usurp heaven. There's also this great little visual we get.
Morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son, Isaac.
It's Ernstman driving with Uriel in the back seat, as the messenger shows up and says, "You promised," pointing to some agreement or pact Ernstman made with this entity. However, the voice on the radio is telling the biblical story of Abraham and Isaac. In the story, Abraham was told to sacrifice his son Isaac to God. So Abraham took his son Isaac up to the mountain to perform the sacrifice, but before he did, an angel stopped Abraham's hand. God never wanted Abraham to sacrifice his son. It was merely a test of faith, and was representative of the sacrifice God would one day make for humanity, sacrificing his son for our sake. Well, the parallel here is Ernstman is Abraham and Uriel is Isaac. Ernstman sacrificing something holy and without blemish for this greater power he is serving. Only in Ernstman's story, it's not God. We then see Ernstman in the mirror with this thing I'm going to continue to refer to as the Antichrist standing behind him. Faces from the series appear, remarking that he knew what he was signing up for. And then Ernstman in the mirror transforms into the messenger. It seems that within the series there is a time loop. Ernstman, far into the future under the influence of the Antichrist and whatever's in Brachiel, sent a message, as the messenger said, over the gap of time so that Ernstman may construct the engine and put all of this into motion. And a lot of this is story that we see because of the specific visuals. You can do visual storytelling when the visuals are actually made for the story. And it's really refreshing to see what this series always could be. As you're flipping through this on Instagram, there is another Block Blast ad that comes up, which again is made with characters from the series. However, this ad is once again made with AI. You may be like, well, it's an ad. Most of the series is AI, so maybe you make an ad with AI. Maybe that's all the AI that will show up again. But I'm here to tell you that this is a harbinger for things to come. For now, though, we move into part 21, and we get our first creature that was designed by hand. This creature didn't show up until the series quit using AI. So when we get our first wholly original design, this is what it looks like.
Please do not eat your fellow soldiers.
Well, hello there, fine folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Babylon Office Hour. My name is Tucker Wormwood, and as always, I am joined by our lovely monarch, Babylon the Great.
Do I even need to explain it? Character designs like this compared to what we saw earlier in the series is like a hydrogen bomb versus a coughing baby. There is so much storytelling in just the way it looks. This character is Mother Babylon. Mother Babylon is mentioned in the book of Revelation as being the symbol for violence and war and death that will come to the earth in the end times. Well, in the depiction of Angel Engine, we can see its entire story in just the way it looks. We can see from the broken neck that it's clearly mechanical. This is an artificial creature that once again seems to have been possessed by something. Perhaps the same something or the Antichrist that possessed Ernstman given its blue eyes. Again, when you design the visuals, you can imply so much. But not only that, we can see that it has dressed itself in the facade of the angel and beauty that came before it. It has a face that is horribly stretched across its metal frame. It has long blonde hair fitted on top like a wig. This is likely to imitate the image of Uriel. This is set in the future timeline, thousands of years after the destruction of the world in Ernstman's timeline. Like the world, it is the picture of something elegant draped over something wicked. And in probably my favorite character detail in the whole series, this Mother Babylon, this thing wanting to represent divinity and sacrifice and love, has on its chest a lamb's head, horrifically amalgamated and grafted onto its frame. In the Bible, Jesus is referred to as the Lamb of God, the sacrifice for our sins, a picture of blamelessness that was killed for us. And now Mother Babylon wears that image like a badge, pinning it to its chest to ensure us that it is the love, it is the care, it is the grace, the motherly grace that came before, from which all goodness comes from. But we can so clearly see that it is just the idea of that stretched over something we built. Things like this really break my heart, because you're telling me the whole series could have been like this? We could have had 18 parts before this with this attention to detail and character design. These past 3 episodes have been excellent, and every frame does so much storytelling with so little. Things like this should really be a testament to people out there who are wanting to tell their story. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole and use a machine that creates a one-size-fits-all. Tailor what you want to make to your story, and it will always be better because of it. Mother Babylon is on a program called the Babylon Office Hour. The host she is there with is named Wormwood, in reference to the star that falls to the earth in the book of Revelation. It seems in this far-off future, the world is in a military state, controlled by the remnants of the Second Tower of Babel, or as they're simply called now, Babylon. Babylon being the kingdom that consistently rebelled against God in the Bible, and is mentioned in the book of Revelation symbolically as those who will wage war against God in the future. Here we see the depiction of that as this Babylon Empire has Mother Babylon as a figurehead, and programs like this are meant to carry on her wishes. In the midst of this transmission, Uriel breaks through telling the viewer to repent. Uriel says vast are the streets of Gehenna, calling on the Bible, referring to Gehenna as a place where those who do evil against God suffer for it. And we see in this transmission that Uriel calls upon people like the blonde-haired boy we've seen in a lot of the stuff regarding the future timeline. This boy has some purpose that we don't know of yet. This series is really ramping up into something. The visuals are great, they're compelling, they match the story. And there's something here worth telling. There's something here that's interesting. And that takes us to episode 22. And if you'll notice, as soon as the episode starts,
How to save a soul from burning. Step 1. If born to heathen parents, take the infant.
we're back to the AI visuals. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is the most mad any of these have ever made me. Any fictional YouTube series, whatever, that I've covered, this did me in. You proven yourself to be a good writer, to have something compelling, and then you learned that when you make visuals for your story, which is a visual medium, is enhanced tenfold, and then you quit doing that. Unearthly Hub left a comment on this one, where they said, "Guys, just so you know, this episode was once again made with AI. We have decided to use both AI and real art and to switch between the two. Otherwise, creating these videos takes too long." It takes too long, huh? It takes too long. So it's easier to make a remarkably worse series that you run through the devil printer. Because why make a series that can be great when you can just make a series that gives you an idea of a series that could be great? I'm getting heated talking about it again. If you want to really set yourself off, just read some of the comments on these videos. Yes, classic Angel Engine right here. What, you mean because the visual looks slightly different than every other visual we've seen because it's ran through a machine that doesn't understand what you're doing? Yes, finally, we back. Don't let the fake fans hate on the AI. We love you, bro. Yeah, because when I think of fans of something, I think of people that would rather the visuals just be randomly spit out by a machine than actually, made. I actually like the AI art better. No, you don't. You don't. You're saying that to be contrarian. Because there is no AI art. It's an approximation every time. It is never the art done over and over again. It is just the idea that's vaguely familiar of the art, and you can't get across any core ideas or consistent imagery with it, and you can't do visual storytelling when the thing that is making the art doesn't understand what that means. I mean, I don't even have to argue this point. Just look at 5 seconds.
Heathen parents, take the infant.
The narration is telling us that people are taking kids away from their mothers, is of a mother willingly giving her kid away, and then a new kid flies into her arms. You like AI art better. You like it when the art directly goes against what the narration is saying is happening on screen. You like it when the thing you're looking at doesn't make any sense. The narrator then, talking about these kids, shows the same blonde-haired kid repeated over and over. So am I to believe that the blonde-haired boy is just a clone or one of many? Because that's what the visual's telling me. But no, I know that's not what it's implying. I just know that that's what the stupid machine thinks is being implied. And you know why I'm mad now? Because for a few episodes, I saw what this could be. It was a good story with compelling moments and compelling ideas that was told with visuals that matched. But now I have to go back to guessing what the story might be about because it's not the one I'm seeing. The narration tells us that this future Babylon takes in orphan kids and then keeps them in houses to indoctrinate them, and then when they're 14 years old, gives them the mark of the beast. And then this happens. I'm speechless. What on God's earth am I looking at? I mean, even when it was AI before, that didn't happen. That was just... Did you lose a bet? Another comment. I think you should use whatever medium best suits your needs, but I personally enjoyed the AI approach. It's exciting to see what can be created with the tools at hand, and I don't believe it diminishes the work itself. Really doesn't diminish the work itself, like at all. Like there's nothing you saw here that diminishes anything you've seen in the series. The messenger's eyes aren't even blue anymore, because I guess the machine forgot to do that, because who cares, right? Who cares about looking good, or at least like what we're talking about? You know, that really is the only argument for AI. It can do things quicker. Like, yeah, is it quicker to hire an artist or learn to make art, or to type a thing you want into a machine and get a vague representation of that? Sure, you can spit out an entire analog horror series in like a day, but it will never be a series that is a modicum of the worth of what it could have been. The difference isn't even that crazy. If you go back to the AI videos, there was like 2 weeks between them. And then with the non-AI, it's like 4 weeks. As a matter of fact, between 20 and 21, it was just 2 weeks again. People who are complaining that they want the episodes to come out faster are not people who have opinions worth having. They're just people who need to put things in front of their eyes so they don't have to think or activate their brain's higher function for another 10 seconds. People who want the series to mean something, for it to be remembered and discussed and elaborated on, they can wait. If someone's complaint of art is that they're not eating it fast enough, they're not the kind of barnacles you need attached to a boat. And you know what? I understand, as a creator, the need to stay relevant. Anytime I haven't worked on a video in a while, I worry about algorithms and I worry about views dropping off because that's my income, that's my livelihood. I get it. And like I said earlier, a lot of these creators make little to anything off of the series they make. That's why things for them like merch and ads, if they can get them, are so important. But the first step to that is you've got to make a series worth watching. And I know there is a series worth watching here, but as long as the visuals look like this isn't it. And it'll be something that people either turn away from because they don't agree with how it's made, or they glance at, chuckle, and then never think about again. If a series is worth supporting, I promise you, if you have eyes on it, and you certainly have eyes on this, people will support it. But that support won't come from people whose idea of art is a series of shapes on a screen that make their brain not have to think hard. In the next part, we get a very Mandela catalog infographic where we're instructed by the members of this futuristic cult who are holding children that they should not listen to the saints if they speak to them and instead pray to their Messiah, Ernstman. It seems in this far future, Ernstman has been deified as a Christ-like figure and is the head of this futuristic cult of Babylon that makes children take the mark. Which I also want to mention, speaking of the Mandela catalog, a defense for AI art that you'll often hear is that real art is hard. That not everyone can be an artist, so it's nice to have a machine that can do the art for you. And I think something very important that we all need to understand is that you do not deserve to make art. No one deserves to make art. It is a skill that needs to be acquired and strive for. It's something you earn, not something that you're entitled to. No one has ever found it easy to make art. Sure, some are more inclined than others, but regardless, there is years of practice and training and honing skills. To think you should be able to access it without that is to dumb down the concept of art as a whole. And the Mandela catalog is a good example of that. Alex Kister made the first episode of the series on his iPhone. Figured out how to put the visuals together, he figured out how to edit on a mobile phone app, and he created something that was worth remembering. Something that the machines seem to remember as they try to approximate what he did. We hear from the classroom that the blonde-haired boy is sitting in that it is being taught that Uriel tried to deceive humanity. We also get clarification that this timeline is 2,000 years after Ernstman's timeline. This blonde-haired boy is then visited by Mary. It seems that Mary is visiting the boy to try to commission him to end this evil. At one point, the boy says he cannot be the one to do it, and Mary says, when Jesus was on the cross and he thought of all his children, do you not think you came to his mind? Again, these are sobering ideas. These are cool ideas that when we feel unworthy for what God has called us to, I'm sure God felt pretty bad on that cross, but he thought of you specifically, and he did it anyway. So who are we to refuse whatever call he has for us? Again, powerful visuals, sadly in the midst of everything else. Also, there's a ton of people in the comments on this one who are upset by the inclusion of Mary, which I understand, in Orthodox Christianity and Catholic Christianity, Mary is held as a divine figure. So I understand them not wanting her to be depicted in an analog horror series, but they also depict Jesus. Last I checked, he's pretty divine. And it's also pretty clear that Mary is a good guy here, commissioning this new hero far into the future to go fight for God. So I don't know, I find it kind of funny that people see depictions of Jesus and of angels and the Antichrist and all that. And then when Mary shows up, they're like, whoa, when did this become religious? Who brought Christianity into this? We then see glimpses of Brachiel in the far future, wanting to have friends and play with local children. It seems there's a disconnect between Brachiel in Ernstman's timeline, where it's an agent of the Antichrist, and Brachiel in the future, who seemingly has lost their purpose and just wants to be a friend. My theory for this is perhaps Brachiel was possessed by some demonic or Antichrist-adjacent entity, but over time, because Brachiel had a piece of Uriel's love within them, it began to win out. So in Ernstman's timeline, it's evil, but 2,000 years later, the goodness has won. So perhaps in the future, Barakiel simply wants to do good because that's all that the love inside of it knows how to do. This theory is reinforced when we see what happened to the Angel Corps. Again, the Angel Corps were individual soldiers made up of dead bodies who were imbued with part of Uriel's power. Well, in the future, Babylon has turned against them, chained them up for public torture and executions. Perhaps like Barakiel, that love has overwhelmed their programming as well. So the wicked people of Babylon have turned on them. I also suspect that from this point on, the series incorporates a lot of actually drawn visuals into the AI. Maybe uses AI for some movement and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but it's so muddled at this point. There's a clear distinction between the entirely drawn stuff and all this. There's a part where Ernstman says that to build his own angel, he used the angel DNA and spliced it with a human egg from a test subject named Rachel. There's also this visual where it looks like the Antichrist is speaking to someone. You would think it's Ernstman, but they're referring to Ernstman, and the thing with the red eyes says that he's not Ernstman, but because of the red eyes, this may be the thing that's possessing Barakiel. So it's like a body and then the thing possessing Barakiel, and also the Antichrist, I think, with the blue eyes back there. I don't know, maybe if the visuals were drawn so I could know what I'm looking at, I could figure something out, but oh well. And also with Ernstman talking about building your own angel with an egg and angel DNA, is that implying that Barakiel's organic? Because I thought it was very clear that, you know, with all the wires and the metal skin, that it was like a facade, like an animatronic angel effectively. Or is this referring to another angel that was made genetically? There's also a remake of the Boots video I mentioned earlier, but it's still using AI. There's just some added characters like Angel Corps soldiers in the midst of it. So it's like another AI Boots thing, I guess. There's also this other edit that kind of annoys me. So there was this video posted by RottingMarigolds called Mama. So Rotting Marigold creates a lot of these short analog horror projects on YouTube, more in the traditional VHS style. And they made one video called Mama that the audio has become quite popular on TikTok. I'm sure you've heard before.
Mom, where were you? Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you protect me?
People have adapted this into a lot of different visuals, taking different characters and making them match the lines. As the lines are of a child who died but felt abandoned by their mother and are now haunting them for not saving them. So Unearthly Hub made one for Angel Engine. Now you could give this the same complaint that I mentioned earlier regarding Squirrel Stapler and the whole God is Coming thing, but it was a trend on TikTok to match visuals to this sound. And since this is a standalone edit, I feel it's a bit different. What bothers me about it is the implication of it. Because here, instead of a child speaking to their mother, it's Uriel speaking to Jesus, with Uriel saying, "Why didn't you save me?" And Jesus reassuring Uriel that Uriel is still his child. Which, wouldn't this kind of diminish one of the cooler points of the series I've mentioned, that Uriel is willingly staying in the engine because even though it hurts him, he's still helping humanity? I mean, here it sounds like Uriel's actually captured and unable to escape, which is far less interesting than him staying there willingly because he still feels like he's helping. Now, you could say, similar to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, it's natural to have doubts and still be afraid of what's happening to you, even if you endure. But I don't know. I know it's just an edit and not like a mainline entry, but I feel like it diminishes some of the cooler ideas in the series. Also, AI Jesus is almost certainly a heresy. We also see another clip of Barakiel in the future. It seems Barakiel uses his power to perform miracles to help people out, to give them things like friends and fame. We also see this clip of the hero or the young boy finding the messenger, who the boy refers to as Dr. Ernstman. This seems to confirm the theory I mentioned earlier of perhaps the messenger is just Ernstman in the far future, or an amalgamation of Ernstman and the beings that possess him. But again, because it's AI, we get these confusing visuals where the boy blinks and then Ernstman's head is huge. Is this because he got really close, or his head just does that. Who knows? We see the boy getting the mark of the beast, and there's this interesting moment where Jesus speaks to him in the midst of this and says that he will still love him. Again, the idea of God's love reaching out to us even as we continuously reject him is an interesting motif in the story. We also get a clip that implies in the current timeline or the Ernstman timeline that after Ernstman's death, Barakiel got people and used their skin to put Ernstman back together. Again, perhaps at the time Barakiel was under the influence of the Antichrist or whatever possessed them, or at least believed they were doing the right thing. There's also this clip where the messenger or future Ernstman or whatever is talking about how to take the Holy Land and how you have to prop up an enemy and then stage a false flag attack to commit an invasion, which, you know, Holy Land, common enemy. I feel like this is trying to be commentary on something that I can't put my finger on. But then as the messenger is talking, Ernstman's face appears inside of it and says that it's not him speaking. So if this is Ernstman's body, then maybe that means the Antichrist or whatever is assuming control to give this message. We also see in the future timeline that the boy is made to be a part of Babylon's army and execute people who go against Babylon. And Barakiel seems to be helping with this process, likely because they don't understand right from wrong and just simply want to help. As it seems, Barakiel, for the forces of Babylon, acts as their collective guardian angel. That or there's multiple Barakiels. It'd be really cool if that were the case, that there would be, I don't know, maybe an artist who could draw them with distinctions to show that they are the same, but there are unique ones. That'd be cool, but since it's AI, I've got no clue. Which I do think the implication is everyone gets a Barakiel or guardian angel that works for Babylon, I think at least. We also see one of the Angel Corps members being tortured and Barakiel telling the boy to ignore this. So Barakiel or the Barakiels are siding with Babylon, and the Angel Corps at some point between the Ernstman timeline and the future defected and are now the enemy. We also see Uriel speaking to the boy in a vision, since the boy has taken the mark and rejected the calling from Mary. Uriel is telling the boy to depart from him, using the words in the Bible that Jesus said would be spoken at Judgment Day to those who rejected Christ. We also see the boy, while operating with the army of Babylon, are going door to door and finding people who reject Babylon, and they do things like kill the parents and take the children to be indoctrinated. However, when one of the soldiers goes to take the child, the boy threatens to kill him, and then his guardian angel, or maybe the good Barakiel, I'm not sure, they all look alike, kills the soldier wanting to help the boy. We see a glimpse of an Angel Corps soldier being made and telling the people who are working on them that they're working for the Antichrist, which again ties back in the idea that Babylon serves the interest of the Antichrist, which is probably possessing Ernstman. We then get this visual that looks like Uriel speaking to Ernstman, and then the two of them becoming the messenger in the future. So maybe the messenger we see is like Ernstman, the Antichrist, and Uriel, but that also doesn't make sense because Uriel is still hooked up to the machine in the future, I think. I need an episode with an actual artist so I can see what's trying to be implied. We see in the time after Ernstman died that Uriel wouldn't resurrect Ernstman. Perhaps Uriel knew that the Antichrist would possess him. So the other scientists have to activate Barakiel to revive him. But it seems that even all the way back then, Barakiel was conflicted, wanting to do good and seeing Ernstman as their father, simply not understanding good and being made to do what Babylon wanted them to do. And at the time of recording, that's every episode in the series, up to 36, I believe. And if you couldn't tell, I'm kind of frustrated. The series undeniably has good writing, great themes, great moments, and I have to pretend to see a lot of that instead of what I'm actually seeing. When the series for a few episodes was using art, I saw it. I saw what it could be. I saw its potential, and then it quit doing that. All of this could really be something special, and I wish it could be that special all the time. I've spoken to the creator, and there's hope for the series moving forward, but for now, this is what it is. However, there is one part of this series that I am unabashedly a fan of. It's the thing at the beginning of the video I said that I saw that made me check it out in the first place. And that is the Angel Engine video game, something that very explicitly, without exception, was not made using any AI. The first piece from Angel Engine that is wholly original. So what does this story look like when it starts off on the right foot? Well, I've got to say, pretty good. So Angel Engine the game came out last month, and it was developed by HMS Studios and Black Lantern Collective. And the fact that it exists is interesting. There's not a lot of online horror series that get their own video game. Sure, there's games based on online horror series around like Kane's Backrooms or the Mandela Catalog, but rarely do they get a dedicated named game that the original creator is a part of. And also, across the Steam page, in the credits on social media, they are super clear that zero AI was involved in the making of this game, which again is the thing that caught my interest and made me check out this series in the first place. So I went into the Angel Engine game before I saw the Instagram series. I was familiar with the concept of Angel Engine, and I'd seen a couple visuals, like a picture of Jeff before, but beyond that I knew nothing and went into the game blindfolded to see if the game would hold up without needing me to watch the series first. And I'm happy to say it does, and I'm also happy to say that, unlike my qualms with the series, I can't recommend the game enough. The game places you in the role of a worker at the Second Tower of Babel. Specifically, the game is set between Ernstman's death and resurrection. And again, you don't need to watch the series to understand this because it's explained in the introduction to the game. Our job at the Second Tower of Babel is to repair bodies, or as they're referred to, angels. Now, if you just play the game, you're not sure what we're building these angels for, but if you watch the series, you'll know that this is Babel putting together the angel core, which we know in the series are piloted by resurrected people. So, in the game, we prepare bodies for this process. As far as the gameplay goes, it wouldn't be out of place to call this a resource management game. Initially, we have to find wounds on the injured bodies and repair them. We repair them by performing mini-games that coincide with excising debris inside of the body or sawing off injured limbs or injured parts of the body. And as the operations progress, more things begin to go wrong. The fuse box begins to short out. The power starts to turn off. So in the midst of the operation, we have to break from it to repair the room we're in. We're doing these things against the clock because eventually the body will wake up. In some ways, the gameplay loop is comparable to Five Nights at Freddy's, and I'm not the only one who made that observation. When you get to the bonus operations, or effectively custom nights of the game, one of the custom nights descriptions is a joke about Five Nights at Freddy's. The difference is, and the reason that I enjoy this gameplay loop to that of FNAF, is the aesthetic. We're inside of something named after the Tower of Babel, an affront to God that wants to be like God. And a lot of the art design speaks to that. The light above us and the control panel host pentagrams. The equipment we see is very futuristic, but it's been weathered by war. It reminds me a lot of the interior of the Citadel from the Half-Life games. You can feel that this is set in a world where the angels provided a lot of power, but it's left the world rotting. A lot of people, while speaking of Angel Engine, have said even if the series reverts from AI, it's still using models that were based on AI, and I understand why people may have a problem with that. But the models made for this game are wholly original. I mean, like, look at this design for Uriel. Sure, it has similarities like the halo and the long blonde hair, but this is solely made for this game. You can see with the glow of the halo that divinity was once there, but now it's trapped in a box. It's surrounded by wires. Here we have art direction that is elevated by its creation and not hampered by pieces without art direction around it. As the operations continue, more things will continue to stumble your efforts. It seems like entities or spirits begin to arrive and cause the equipment to malfunction. If we turn on a device that detects their presence, we can see that they are indicated by angel sigils. This is a really cool attention to detail and implies that spirits or heavenly bodies themselves are trying to prevent Babel from what they're doing. That, or you could say these are demonic sigils and they're just trying to resurrect the bodies to attack people before the bodies are made into the angel core. This would track because the way that you hold off these entities is with holy water. Holy water that will periodically be removed and you have to bless the object again. Something I really want to give props to this game for is its sound design. There are so many different sound indicators, from the mini games to certain equipment failing to new entities appearing to things like the holy water going away. But they're all unique enough that once you learn them, you'll never unlearn them. Watching someone play it may seem hectic, but once you're in the driver's seat and you get into a flow with these things, it feels natural, and completion feels satisfying. Which, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to see my first playthrough, the whole thing's over on the Wendiglitch channel, link in the description. But if you know anything about me, you know the thing that I'm interested in is the lore. And I'm happy to say that the game certainly has a lot of that. You can see me read through and discover each piece of lore on the Wendiglitch video, but to summarize, as we complete each operation, we unlock a new login for the PC. On that PC, we can see email exchanges between other employees at the Second Tower of Babel. There's 5 different characters who are mentioned in these email exchanges, and they're the different accounts that we'll unlock as we progress. So it's interesting because early on you'll see one half of the conversation, or what this person thinks, and then when you unlock the corresponding person's account, you'll get to see it from their perspective. And from what we read, the life of the employees at Babel 2 is not good. People are haunted by nightmares. They become convinced that the bodies in the morgue are moving, or that they recognize people coming down the tracks to be operated on. One employee seems to have a hereditary disease that there's no hope of recovery from, and begins to wonder if he could die and then be remade as one of these angels. Another character, Emilio, who's a night guard who will come and visit us periodically throughout our operations, which again, night guard, Five Nights at Freddy's reference. But we hear from his conversation and from his emails that he was a veteran of one of the many wars that was happening on Earth right before the bombs fell. And his trauma from the war has worsened, and he begins to hear whispering or voices speaking to him. It seems whatever entity might exist in the tower is preying on people's vulnerabilities. A character who we hear mentioned throughout the different accounts is someone named Jason Rutherford. It seems that within the tower, after Ernstman died, Rutherford stepped up, not only demanding that the other employees respect him, but saying they can refer to him as Jeff 2. He seems desperate to take the moniker of what Ernstman meant to people. Now, after watching the series, I would assume that Eckelbloom would be the number 2 who would step up into a lead role. But perhaps Eckelbloom was just the leader on the corporate side, and Rutherford was actually manning things in the creation of the Angel Corps. Either way, it doesn't matter because of how Rutherford's email exchange ends. We see through Rutherford's emails, which his account is the last one we unlock in the game, that he is very cutthroat. One of the other employees, a woman named Talia, slept with him, and he uses it as leverage to make her act in line. Well, as things begin to fall apart and people within the facility begin to succumb to the voices and things they hear around them, Rutherford's final email reads as follows. You were all dead wrong about me. You thought I was stupid, right? You thought I was a pawn in your silly little game, but you didn't watch me close enough. I cut the weak links while you let your guard down. Tell me, Jason, when you look in the mirror, do you see the men who told you you were nothing? Who had their way with you as they slept in your mother's bed? You've become everything you hated to make it to the top, all for me to take it right back. How foolish of you to believe you could replace me. I'm in control now. I am the Genesis. And it seems like with many other characters in the story, Rutherford's ego led to his downfall. We don't know who this is speaking from Rutherford's account. It could be Eckelbloom. It could be Ernstman, his spirit right before his resurrection. It creates intrigue and menace in a fascinating way. The game also had a couple of moments that got me. Like, for example, at one point while I was just reading the terminal, this happened. I've seen them too. Interesting. Any updates on these? Yeah. What the heck? What the heck? What? I don't want to back out. If I back away right now, it's going to be there. Whoa. Okay. Oh, gosh. I hate this. Oh. Exorcist guide right now, please. It seemed like there was an entity right behind the monitor, but when I stood up, it was just a disembodied hand. In all of the playthroughs I did since, I could not get this to happen again. No jump scare, no heavy-handed sound effect, just the idea that a presence is there, but I don't get to see it. And again, the chances of it happening seem pretty low. Perhaps there's other random encounters like this that I just didn't come across. When the power goes out, messages will appear on the wall asking if we trust him. As we lower the heat, Uriel whispers to us saying he is coming. Perhaps all these things are in relation to Ernstman, someone who we know from the series is bound to return. And then sure enough, which spoilers for the end of the game, the final operation before the bonus operations is on Jeff Ernstman. We repair his body only for him to switch places with us, placing us now in the chamber, before we're cast away, showing us finally what Ernstman's resurrection looked like. The body was repaired, and immediately this entity within it, more powerful than anything that had come before, usurped the employee that put it back together and began to enact his plan for the end of the world. I think this game's great because, for one, it works as its own game, but it also connects to the rest of the series. When I played it without watching the rest of the series, it was just a cool story about this demonic or evil business at the end of the world that was repairing bodies for some unknown reason. And at the end, we resurrect the person who founded it, putting into motion the end of the planet. In the video on Wendiglitch, I completed all of the bonus game modes, and there wasn't any additional lore or account to log into. And I was a bit bothered by this at the time, but after speaking to Unearthly Hub, there is plans for additions in the future. Even plans to have new login codes show up within the series itself, which is a cool way to tie the game into the original series. All in all, especially because there seems to be more on the way, I recommend, if you find this interesting at all, that you check the game out. There's a free demo, and the full game itself is $8, both of which will be linked in the description below. But also, the game goes to show, again, how cool this concept is if you just do it. Not when you have visuals that approximate what you're trying to do, but when you get a lot of talented people to put together a vision. From the credits, a ton of talented people worked on this, and you can see that in its execution. Again, it's not incidental that the highest moments from all of Angel Engine are just the parts that people made. So like I mentioned earlier, I reached out to Unearthly Hub and talked to him about a lot of things. I told him that I found this series interesting, but it was hard to find it that interesting because all of the proverbial bathwater. And I want to share some of the things he said to you all. The first thing I asked is, we know a lot of the visuals are AI, and if AI is used anywhere else in the creation of the series, from the writing to the editing or what have you. And Unearthly Hub replied, there's no AI involved in the scripting process or editing. My process usually works like this. I draft up a script, generate the images accordingly, download them and cut them into different layers in Photoshop. Then I put everything together in After Effects, make things move, add voices, music, and effects. Which, to clarify, at the beginning of this video, I said that a lot of the movements were uncanny because they're movements of the AI, but here he's saying that he makes the movements out of the images the AI give him. So yes, technically he's making the movements, but they're movements once again made up of still approximate images, so my point still stands. Now, I hate AI, but to a lot of people, the use of AI disqualifies anything you say after the fact. So if you want to not believe him, it's your prerogative, but for what it's worth, I think he's telling the truth. It's very clear to me that the most creative instances of the series are things like the writing. And I think the gap between that and some of the visuals is enough to point to the fact that they're likely legitimate. I asked some story-specific questions about Ernstman and Barakiel, and I want to share a couple that I think are interesting. As for Barakiel, he often acts drastically different from episode to episode, whether in the future or the past. This is a sort of ironic twist on the trope because Barakiel is an artificial angel. According to Catholic theology, I am Catholic, angels, after making the original choice of whether to serve God or not, are fully fixed in their nature, be it fallen or beatified. They do not change their mind. Barakiel, who is basically a failed experiment, is essentially like a little kid in comparison to Uriel. Again, this is an interesting concept, and one of the things that I mentioned as being one of the more interesting concepts of the story. Again, it's that creativity that comes from Unearthly Hub's own religion that brings out what this series could be. Unearthly goes on to say, he constantly changes his mind and acts wholly different from time to time. It's supposed to illustrate the obvious pitfall humanity would encounter if they, with their little knowledge, would try to imitate the power of a creature as powerful as an angel. Again, it's things like this that make me want to see this story be all it can be, because there is something really special here. I also want to share an interaction we had because I don't want it to come off that I'm being two-faced. That maybe I was super nice to him and pretended that I was wholly uncritical of the series, so he'd answer my questions, only to betray him with all of my criticism in this video. And I think his response to what I said is important for the future of the series. So I said, thank you so much for these answers. I have to say the series has some excellent themes and the plot is fascinating. I do think, and this will come up in the video, that the AI elements hold it back, which might have been a bit of an understatement. I think you've got a real gem of a narrative on your hands, and I'm excited to see how it all ties together. I also think it would be better received if visuals catered to the series rather than being generated to approximate the direction. I do appreciate hiring an artist and the game's dedication to being wholly original. I understand artists add time, and I think if you were to do more merch pushes or have a Patreon for people to support funding for more artists to make things move quicker, your audience would be receptive. This is all just my opinion. You've cultivated a series on your own and didn't need me to tell you how to do it, so take my advice with a grain of salt. I just love good stories, and this is a great story that I wish was free of the baggage that comes with it. To this, Unearthly replied, "Hi, thank you so much. I totally get what you mean. I'm currently looking into ways to extend the show's funds so that maybe I could hire more artists. I do have a Patreon, but I have to figure out a more efficient way to use it. I'm also looking into making a comic at the moment. That sort of has always been my dream, and I think it might give the narrative the extra space it needs. Like the game, that would also be fully made by hand. No AI involved. I really appreciate the feedback, and I'm looking forward to seeing the video." Then after this, Unearthly asked that I clarified the game was not made with AI so that the artists and developers of the game aren't being accused of something they didn't do, which I appreciate. And if you go to Unearthly's account, one of his most recent posts is a couple of manga panels. Or I say manga because it's black and white. It could just be a black and white comic. The artist in the description is credited as Fenka. And just looking at the two comic panels we see of the boy stepping beneath the Tower of Babel and finding Uriel, there is so much life that's expressed in these still images. From the attention to detail showing the hand and then the push of the door and then the ruined room, there's a buildup. You can almost feel the fear the boy has stepping into this space. And then when he sees Uriel, it looks fantastic. The eyes still burning bright, but the face withered, pulled apart, and ruined by the cords around it. Still alive, but barely. Everything we've done to him is on display. And this is just one picture. Imagine if we had a whole series of this. Things like this get me excited. Things like the game get me excited. But it's still so strange to have these comic panels and this game only for the series to go back after their dedication and the attention that they are not using any AI for the original series to keep using AI. I can't support AI, but I really want to support this story. So I am making a public commitment right now. Along with time and quickness that I mentioned earlier, the other benefit that people argue to AI is that it's cheap. You don't have to pay creators to make images, but at the point Angel Engine has got to, especially because of the game, I'm sure that's not a problem anymore. Nevertheless, if real artists are on board, the more support, the better. So if Angel Engine switches to real artists and continues to use them, I will sign up for the Patreon. I will buy every piece of merch. If there is any way to support the series, I will do it if it remains legitimate. I want to see this series do good, and I'm willing to give it a second chance. The game was good enough as is. It won on its first chance. It's because of things like that, and it's because of this great story in the midst of everything else that I want to see pulled out, that I'll support it in any way that makes that happen. Now, if there are those of you out here who say one chance was one chance too many, and you don't want to support it because even if the series reverts totally from AI, it's still using characters that were based on AI and all that, I get it. From me, when I see unearthly storytelling, I can tell that there's a creator in there. And I'm willing to put my money on the line and be hurt again if it means I might see that creation come out. If this entire video hasn't been proof enough, I, of course, have my gripes with the series, but my biggest gripe is it isn't all it can be. So we'll see what Angel Engine does from here, and I'll find out pretty quick if I'm going to keep watching or not. And you can make that decision for yourself. Again, everything will be linked in the description if you want to check it out. But I'm happy you decided to keep watching this video, and that really means a lot, and I just want to say thank you for watching. This is a hard one for me. The only other time that I've covered a series and been this critical of it or close to this critical of it is when I did the video that was Greylock versus Urban Spook, or the Painter series. And to be honest with you, I kind of felt weird about that one after it came out. Not so much my criticisms of the Painter, but I felt weird tying the Painter to a completely unrelated project, again, like Greylock, that I think is so great. And funny enough, Greylock, a series that I love a ton, used AI in one of the early episodes. The pictures of the miners who were attacked underneath the mountain or became possessed underneath the mountain were AI generated. But in Rob's defense, this was in the early days of AI before it became everything that it is now, and Rob heard the criticisms and dropped it. And Rob's clearly a talented creator visually and from a narrative perspective, so I don't think a misstep like that should be held against him. And if Angel Engine goes up from here, I don't want everything I've said to be held against it. It feels crazy for me to be this negative about a series that has a lot of things about it I like, but if there's anything that could get me this negative, it's AI. So I've rambled enough. Thank you for sticking around as long as you have. This video had a bunch of weird side tangents and complaints, but hey, I think you people like that or something. Once again, brand new gaming channel in the description. The love that you guys have shown over there has been tremendous. Again, it really means a lot to get to start these projects and see so much support for them. So check out Wendiglitch if you're interested. Weekly content going up every Monday on Wendigang, and content going up once to twice a month over here. All the videos over here, I do everything but the editing myself, so it takes a bit more time. But y'all have been watching me ramble into a camera for this long, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I appreciate your support, despite this not being as quite well balanced as things like Wendigang. But I appreciate that here I can still turn on the camera like I've been doing for years, and you guys show up and we get to talk about things that we find creepy or we find interesting, and that means a lot. All in all, I believe that should do it for now. Everything mentioned will be linked in the description. New content on the way soon. But before I go, I just want to say thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! I hit my hand really hard on the desk just then. Ow.